You are nothing but a disgrace, Olyawasian. The words split the air like a gunshot across the family dining table. My husband's hand, still greasy from the goat meat stew my mother had cooked, hovered mid-air as he pointed at me in front of his parents, my siblings, and even our 2 little children. His voice was sharp, commanding, like he was standing in his office barking orders, not in his own home. Before I could catch my breath, he slammed his palm on the table so hard the plates rattled. If I don't teach this woman respect, I'll lose everything I've worked for, he shouted, eyes burning with something darker than anger. I froze. My ears rang. My mother gasped. And my children. They clung to my wrapper, eyes wide, too young to understand but too aware to miss the fear crawling into the room. What would you do if your husband said this to you in front of everyone? Hit like if you've ever felt betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Welcome to Stories by Tino. Thank you for your love and support. Let's dive right in. The dinner was supposed to be peaceful. A Sunday gathering, laughter around the table, bowls of jollof rice steaming beside pepper soup, the scent of fried plantain filling the house. My family had come all the way from Ibadan to Lagos to spend time with us. Instead, my husband, Son, decided it was the perfect stage to humiliate me. He leaned back in his chair, puffing his chest like a soldier before battle. His mother, Mama Son, sat quietly, adjusting her lace wrapper, a sly smile tugging her lips. She never hid her disdain for me. Tonight, though, she looked almost satisfied, as if she had been waiting for this moment. You're always late, Son barked. Late with food, late with respect, late with everything. How do you think a man like me should be treated? Do you want me to lose my promotion because my home is out of order? I blinked, trying to steady myself. Promotion. That was new. But why drag my name into it like this? Son, please, I whispered. This is not the place. Shut up. His hand slammed the table again. The children whimpered. My father coughed, shifting uncomfortably, but my husband's glare silenced even him. And then, like a rehearsed script, Son's phone lit up beside his plate. The name Anita Redheart flashed across the screen. My stomach sank. Anita, the same junior officer at his office I had warned him about. His hand darted for the phone, too late. My sister snatched it before he could hide it. What's this? She demanded, waving the glowing screen. The room went silent except for the faint vibration of another incoming message. I locked eyes with Son. He looked away, jaw tight. And in that silence I knew. It wasn't about me being late. It wasn't about respect. My husband was dancing to another woman's tune, his mistress, giving him orders like a commander. And he was ready to beat me down just to prove himself worthy in her eyes. My hands trembled, but not from fear. Something inside me shifted. My husband thought he knew me, thought I was only the quiet wife who cooked, cleaned, and prayed. What he didn't know was the power of the uniform folded neatly in my trunk upstairs. The uniform that carried a rank higher than his boss. The uniform he never thought to ask about. The uniform that made me more than his wife. It made me his nightmare. I swallowed the fire rising in my throat, because tonight wasn't the night to reveal it. Not yet. Let him think he's winning. Let him think he can control me. The higher his pride climbs, the harder it will crash. But then, Anita's message popped up again. This time, everyone saw it. Don't forget what I told you. Put her in her place. No excuses if you want that seat. Gasps filled the room. My mother's eyes widened. My sister slapped her palm over her mouth. And Son. He snatched the phone and roared. Enough. This is my house. I will do what I want. He pushed back his chair, stood tall, and raised his hand toward me, right there at the dining table. That was when my father shouted, Son, don't you dare. But Son's hand kept rising, slow and deliberate. And as his shadow fell over me, I smiled. Because I knew the secret he didn't. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. Don't you touch me, Esun. My voice thundered across the room before his hand could reach me. Everyone froze. Even Son, his palm still mid-air, blinked, startled. I could feel the fire rising in me, the kind that had slept too long under the weight of obedience and silence. Do it, I hissed, locking eyes with him. Raise that hand, and I promise you, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. He sneered, lowering his hand but puffing his chest. You think you can threaten me? In my own house. This house. I spat. This house that my money helped build? The one I furnished while you were chasing shadows in the name of promotions. The table was silent now. My children clung to my wrapper, their small hands trembling. My father stood halfway from his chair, unsure whether to intervene or let me finish what I had started. My mother wiped her eyes quietly. Son, what's going on? My father finally asked, his voice calm but firm. Son laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. What's going on? Ask your daughter. She's stubborn, disobedient, and she doesn't respect me. How can I get promoted in the office when my wife is making me look weak? My head snapped up. Weak. You're weak because you're listening to a mistress who tells you to beat your wife like a drum. Gasps filled the air. Son's eyes darted nervously, flicking toward his mother. But Mama Son didn't flinch. She folded her arms and said coldly, sometimes, a woman needs discipline. Maybe if you listened more, you wouldn't be here disgracing your husband. Disgrace. I whispered, stunned. Mama, do you know your son's mistress gives him orders? Do you know she tells him to hit me? So what if she does? Mama Son replied, shrugging. At least she's pushing him to greatness. What are you pushing him to? Arguments. My jaw dropped. That was it. I had no more tears left. Only resolve. I turned to my children, kneeling beside them. Go to your room, I said gently. Mummy will come later. They hesitated, eyes wide, but when my mother gestured softly, they obeyed. As soon as their small footsteps faded, I stood tall. My voice was steady. You've insulted me in front of my family. You've threatened me. You've let your mistress control our marriage. But Son, listen carefully. This will be the last time you ever raise your voice at me. He laughed again. What will you do, Adiz? You're just a housewife. You think I'm afraid of your tears. I smiled faintly. You're not afraid of me now, but you will be. He scoffed. You talk too much. He turned toward the door, muttering under his breath, I'll deal with you later. As he walked out, Anita's name flashed again on his phone. I saw the preview. Did you do it? If you want me to speak to the director, you must show her who's boss. So it was true. She was using him like a puppet, dangling a promotion in exchange for cruelty. When the door slammed behind him, my mother rushed to my side. My daughter, she whispered, you must not stay in this kind of marriage. This man will destroy you. I looked her in the eye. Mama, I'm not leaving. Not yet. My father frowned. Then what will you do? I turned slowly toward the window where the night lights of Lagos flickered. I'll fight differently. He thinks I'm powerless. He doesn't know the kind of woman he married. Mama gasped softly. Adiz, are you saying? Yes, I said quietly. He doesn't know I'm a captain in the military reserves. He doesn't know the kind of authority I carry. But he will. For the first time that night, my father smiled faintly. Then be wise, my daughter. Let him think you are still small. The proud man always walks into his own trap. I nodded. Later that night, when Son returned, he didn't speak to me. He showered, lay in bed, and pretended to sleep. But I watched him, my heart calm, my mind sharp. I had already made my decision. Tomorrow, I would begin gathering evidence. Messages, bank transfers, anything linking Anita to his behavior. If Sohn wanted a war, he would have it, but on my terms. Still, as I lay beside him, I felt a pang of sorrow. Once, this was the man I loved. The man I prayed with. The man who held my hands when we had nothing. Now, he was just a stranger under my roof. But dawn was coming. And with it, the truth. The next morning, I watched him leave the house, his perfume lingering behind. I opened his drawer and found receipts, expensive jewelry, dinners, hotel bookings, all for Anita. A rage like fire burned through me. But I smiled, slipped the papers into a brown envelope, and hid it in my wardrobe. The first step of my plan had begun. I whispered to myself, "You thought you could break me, Sohn. But you just woke a sleeping lioness." To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. So you're still messaging her, Essien? The shout tore from my throat before I could stop it. It was barely dawn, and the pale Lego sunlight had just started slipping through our bedroom curtains. Sohn froze, mid-text, his phone still glowing in his hand. "What's your problem, Adiz?" he barked, rolling his eyes like a teenager caught sneaking out. "You're becoming paranoid. Always snooping around." I stepped closer, my eyes blazing. "Paranoid? You humiliate me in front of my family, your mistress tells you to beat me, and you still call me paranoid." He stood, towering over me, his chest heaving. "If you don't stop this nonsense, Adiz, You'll what?" I snapped, cutting him off. "Raise your hand again. Try it. You'll see the kind of woman you married." He blinked. He wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't flinch, the one who didn't cry. I turned, grabbed my wrapper tighter, and walked out of the bedroom before he could speak another word. My heart was pounding, but I didn't care. That confrontation had to happen. It was time to draw my line in the sand. When I reached the kitchen, I sank into a chair and took a deep breath. My plan needed to be calm, deliberate, and smart. No screaming matches. No tears. Just evidence. I opened my phone and began taking pictures. Every receipt, every message, every transfer notification I had found the previous night. I even recorded a voice memo, narrating each one. Years in the military had taught me the importance of documentation. Evidence wins battles. By the time Sohn stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, I already had a small digital folder labeled Proof. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was an investigator. Later that day, I went to my office in uniform, olive green military fatigues, boots polished till they gleamed. Heads turned as I walked through the base. Captain Adiz Nwankwo wasn't a name people whispered lightly. But nobody at home knew this part of me, not even Sohn. For years, I had kept that life separate. I wanted peace in my marriage. I wanted a normal home. But now, that silence had become my weapon. At my desk, I pulled out my secure laptop and began digging deeper. I traced Sohn's phone records, his emails, his transfers. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A series of payments from Sohn's account, each labeled consultation, sent to a private account under the name Anita Olayemi. But the most shocking part. One of the payments matched the exact date he yelled at me at the family dinner. She was paying him to destroy his home. I sat back, trembling. What kind of woman manipulates a man like that? I printed everything and slipped it into a new folder labeled Operation Truth. As I slid it into my bag, a knock came at my office door. It was Sergeant Lomi, my trusted aide. "Captain Ma, are you all right? You look tense." I gave a faint smile. "I'm fine, Lomi. Just handling a personal mission." She hesitated, then said softly, "Ma, forgive me, but that man you call husband doesn't deserve you. We all see what you carry inside. Don't let anyone dim that strength." Her words warmed me. "Thank you, Lomi. I won't." That evening, I returned home earlier than usual. The children were playing quietly, but Sohn wasn't home yet. I went into the bedroom, pulled open his drawer again, and found something new. An envelope with a hotel receipt. The check-in name wasn't his. It was Mrs. Sohn Adeyemi. My breath caught. She was bold enough to use my name. I turned the receipt over. Room 208. Ocean Crest Hotel. 9 p.m. Tonight. By 8:45 p.m., I was parked across the street from the hotel in my civilian clothes. Jeans, a black t-shirt, and a headscarf. I waited, watching. At exactly 9:05, a black Toyota pulled in. Sohn stepped out first, then Anita, tall, light-skinned, with braids and a red dress so tight it screamed arrogance. They walked in together. My chest burned, but I stayed still. No shouting. Not tonight. I pulled out my phone, recorded their entrance, and took photos. Then I whispered to myself, "You're digging your own grave, Sohn. And I'm just collecting the shovel." I drove away before my emotions could betray me. Back home, the children were asleep. I sat at the dining table in the dark, the phone in my hand replaying the video of Sohn and Anita laughing as they entered that hotel. Tears stung my eyes. Not because I was weak, but because the man I loved had chosen to betray me for someone who saw him as a pawn. Still, I wiped my tears and whispered, "It's all right. You wanted a war, Sohn. Now you'll get one." I picked up my military badge, set it beside the folder of evidence, and smiled. Tomorrow, I would meet with a lawyer. But just as I was about to go to bed, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. The message read, "Stay away from Sohn. He's ours now. You can't stop what's coming." My hands shook. Whoever sent it knew exactly what they were doing. I looked around the room, every shadow suddenly feeling alive. What was coming? And who exactly was ours? To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. You think you can threaten me in my own house? I shouted into the empty living room, my voice trembling between fury and fear. The message on my phone still glowed like a curse. Stay away from Sohn. He's ours now. You can't stop what's coming. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echoing in my ears. For a moment, I stood still, staring at the screen, trying to calm the storm inside me. Then slowly, I sank into the nearest chair and whispered, "What have you gotten yourself into, Sohn?" The next morning, I wore my calm like armor. Sohn came downstairs dressed sharply in his office suit, blue blazer, polished shoes, the scent of cologne heavy in the air. He didn't even look at me. "You're leaving early," I said, keeping my voice steady. He glanced briefly. "Got a meeting with Anita?" I asked coldly. His eyes snapped to mine. "Don't start, Adiz. I'm not in the mood." I folded my arms. "Then maybe you'll be in the mood for this." I slid my phone across the table so he could read the message. He frowned, picked it up, and scanned the words. His expression shifted, first surprise, then something like guilt. But in a flash, he masked it with anger. "Who's sending you nonsense like this? You're making things up to destroy me." I stepped closer. "You know who sent it. And you know why. You've gotten mixed up with the wrong woman, Sohn. This isn't just infidelity anymore. This is danger." He scoffed, brushing past me. "You're overreacting. Anita's helping me get promoted. That's all. Don't turn it into drama." I clenched my fists. "Helping you? By ordering you to beat your wife." He turned, face tight. "You don't understand how things work. You think you're strong because of your uniform, but at home, I'm the man. You'll do as I say." Something inside me broke. "No, Sohn. Not anymore. I will not let you destroy this family for a promotion or a mistress. You've made your choice. Now I'll make mine. After he left, I called my friend, Barrister Kemi Aderimi, one of the sharpest lawyers in Lagos. She picked up on the first ring. Kemi, it's Adiz. Her voice softened. My dear, you sound tired. What's happening? I explained everything. The mistress, the messages, the beating he'd threatened, the hotel receipts. She listened quietly. When I finished, she said firmly, You need to protect yourself, Adiz. Emotionally. Legally. If this woman is manipulating your husband, she might be part of something bigger. Bribery, corruption, even blackmail. I exhaled. I've gathered evidence. I just don't know what to do next. Bring it to me, she said. We'll file for legal separation first. Then, if needed, a restraining order. But most importantly, let's find out who Anita really is. Her words gave me strength. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of control returning. That evening, I visited Kemi's office, a sleek glass building in Victoria Island. As we reviewed the documents, her eyes widened. These payments, they're not just random transfers. This woman is tied to someone high up in your husband's company, possibly his director. Adiz, this could be a scheme, an internal affair where Anita uses men like Sohn to gain leverage. I swallowed hard. So my husband's being used like a pawn? Exactly. And once he's done serving her purpose, she'll discard him, or worse. My head spun. The woman wasn't just a mistress. She was a manipulator, a strategist. And my foolish husband was dancing in her palm. Kemi leaned forward. We'll dig deeper. I have a contact at the corporate registry. We'll trace Anita's records. I nodded slowly. Do it. And Kemi, thank you. She smiled faintly. You're a soldier, Adiz. It's time to fight like one. That night, I returned home to find Sohn waiting in the living room. His face was tight, jaw set. Who did you tell? He demanded. I blinked. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Anita said someone's been asking questions about her. Did you go behind my back? I stepped closer, unafraid. Yes, I did. And I'll keep digging until I find out who she really is. His eyes flashed. You're going to ruin everything. Everything. I snapped. You mean your filthy promotion bought with lies and humiliation? If that's everything to you, then you've already lost. He raised his hand again, then hesitated. Something in my eyes stopped him. Maybe it was the fire. Maybe it was the calm. Touch me, I whispered. And tomorrow morning, your name will be in every military report in this country. He froze. Slowly, he lowered his hand and stormed out, slamming the door. I stood there in silence, my chest heaving, my fingers trembling slightly. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. But as I turned to lock the door, a car horn honked outside. I peeked through the curtain. A dark SUV sat across the street, engine running, lights off. My stomach twisted. Whoever was inside wasn't here by accident. I pulled the curtain back and whispered, So it begins. The next morning, Kemi called. Her voice was urgent. Adiz, I found something. Anita isn't just an office secretary. She's connected to a private firm handling internal promotions for government contracts. And guess what? Your husband's department is under investigation for fraud. My blood ran cold. You mean, he's part of a setup? Maybe not yet. But if he keeps following her, he will be. I hung up slowly, staring at the framed photo of our wedding on the shelf. The man who once vowed to protect me was now walking into a trap that could destroy us both. And the only person who could save him was the woman he betrayed. I sat on the edge of the bed, whispering to myself, God, give me strength. I'll save him, but I'll never let him hurt me again. I reached for my uniform, buttoned it with steady hands, and prepared for the next step, contacting military intelligence. Because if Anita thought she was the only one who knew how to play power games, she was about to meet her match. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. He's walking straight into a trap, and he doesn't even see it. That was the first thing I said as I slammed my palm on the desk of Major Hossan, head of military intelligence at the Lagos Command. My voice shook with urgency, my heart pounding like war drums. Major Hossan looked up slowly, adjusting his glasses. Captain Adiz, calm down. Start from the beginning. I took a deep breath and laid the folder on his table. Inside were the receipts, phone messages, transfers, and the threatening text. My husband, Son Adeyemi, works for the Ministry of Infrastructure. He's being manipulated by a woman named Anita Olayemi. She's using him to gain access to classified contracts, and now she's threatening me to stay silent. He opened the file and skimmed through it, his brow tightening. This isn't just domestic trouble, Captain. This smells like corporate espionage. I know, I replied firmly. That's why I came. I want to expose them. But I don't want Son harmed. He's guilty of betrayal, but not corruption. Not yet. The Major nodded. You've done the right thing. We'll keep an eye on him and the woman. But, Captain, you must tread carefully. If this Anita is connected to higher powers, she won't go down quietly. I straightened my shoulders. Sir, I'm ready. I've lived with humiliation long enough. Now it's time for justice. He studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. You're a soldier indeed. That night, back home, I cooked dinner like nothing had happened. The children laughed as they watched TV, their innocent voices a reminder of what I was fighting for. Son arrived late, smelling of perfume and frustration. He threw his jacket on the couch. Why is everyone looking at me like that? I turned slowly from the stove. Because you've turned this house into a battlefield. He frowned. What are you talking about? I'm talking about your choices, Son. The meetings. The lies. The woman who's using you like a puppet. He scoffed. You've been spying on me again, haven't you? No, I said softly. I've been protecting you. From yourself. He stepped closer, glaring down at me. You think you're so powerful because of that uniform, ABI? You think you can scare me? I looked him straight in the eyes. No, Son. I don't want to scare you. I want to save you. But if you continue, I won't protect you anymore. He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head and walked out. But I saw it, just a flicker in his eyes, doubt, fear, confusion. The poison Anita had fed him was starting to crumble. The next morning, I met with Major Hossan again. He handed me a small device. This is a covert recorder. Keep it in your house. If Anita ever contacts him or steps foot inside, we'll have proof. I tucked it into my purse. Thank you, sir. And Captain, he added, don't let emotions cloud your mission. Betrayal hurts, but justice requires patience. I nodded. I understood. 2 days later, the storm came. Son returned home late one evening, his face pale, his hands trembling. He dropped into a chair, staring into space. I approached cautiously. Son, what's wrong? He swallowed hard. I think I've made a mistake. I froze. What do you mean? He rubbed his temples. Anita. She asked me to sign a document today. Said it was part of the promotion process. But when I looked closely, it was a transfer authorization for 500 million naira. My heart stopped. 500 million? From where? From the government project account. His voice cracked. She said if I didn't sign, She'd tell the director I was incompetent. She threatened to ruin me. I clenched my fists. You didn't sign it, did you? He looked at me helplessly. I don't know. She said she'd fix it if I trusted her. I was scared. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Sohn, you've walked into a trap. They're setting you up for fraud. His eyes widened as the truth sank in. Adiz, what do I do? For the first time in months, he sounded like the man I once loved. Broken, scared, human. I knelt beside him, my voice steady. You'll do exactly what I say. Tomorrow, you'll go to the office like normal. Don't confront her. Don't sign anything else. Leave everything to me. He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. But even as I comforted him, my mind raced. If Anita was moving this fast, the network behind her was bigger than we thought. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was survival. That night, as Sohn slept fitfully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, whispering prayers. God, give me the wisdom of Deborah and the courage of Esther. Let truth expose the wicked. At dawn, I slipped out of bed, placed the recorder under the TV stand, and checked the hidden cameras I had installed with Lomi's help. Every angle was covered. If Anita dared to enter my home or call my husband again, the evidence would speak for itself. But just as I finished setting the last device, my phone buzzed. A new message. From the same unknown number. We warned you, soldier. Now it's too late. Attached was a photo of my 2 children leaving their school gate. My knees buckled. My vision blurred. They had crossed the line. I clutched my chest, breathing hard. My babies. My innocent babies. This was no longer about revenge or betrayal. This was war. I grabbed my phone and called Major Hossain immediately. Sir, they've threatened my children. His voice hardened. Stay calm, Captain. We're deploying surveillance right away. Don't act rashly. They want you to panic. But how could I stay calm when the people I loved most were in danger? I hung up, tears burning my eyes, and whispered to myself, You wanted a soldier, Anita? You just got one. From this moment, no mercy. No hesitation. I would bring her entire empire crashing down. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. If you touch my children, I swear on my uniform, you'll regret it. The words tore from my throat before I even realized I'd said them. I stood in the middle of my living room, clutching my phone, staring at the photo of my babies outside their school gate. My hands shook. My breathing came in short bursts. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. For a moment, my knees weakened. The ground beneath me felt like it was spinning. Then, slowly, the soldier in me rose. My fear hardened into fire. I straightened my back and whispered, They think I'm just a wife. They have no idea who they're dealing with. I called Major Hossain immediately. Sir, they've sent me a picture of my children. It's a threat. His voice was firm, commanding. Captain Adiz, listen to me. From now on, the safety of your children is our top priority. I'll assign a covert team to guard them, unseen, armed, and ready. You must act normal. Let them think you're scared. I exhaled slowly. Understood, sir. Meanwhile, he continued, we've traced the number that sent the message. It's registered under a shell company linked to Anita's firm. This is bigger than we thought. She's working for a corruption ring siphoning money through government accounts. Your husband is one of many pawns. My stomach twisted. So Sohn is being used as a scapegoat. Yes. They make him sign documents, then vanish. When the fraud is uncovered, he'll be arrested while the real masterminds disappear. I clenched my fists. No. I won't let them destroy him, even after everything he's done. The major paused. That's noble, Captain. But are you ready for what comes next? I'm ready, I said firmly. It's time to bring Anita down. That night, I gathered my children in their bedroom. I hugged them tightly, breathing in their scent, soap and innocence. My daughter, little Zuri, looked up at me and asked, "Mummy, why are you sad?" I forced a smile. "Mummy's not sad, my love. Mummy's strong." She touched my cheek gently. "You'll protect us, right?" Tears pricked my eyes. "Always." As they drifted to sleep, I whispered a prayer over them. "Father, cover them with your wings. No evil shall come near." Then I stepped out, closing the door softly behind me. My eyes hardened. The next day, I went to Sohn's office building in plain clothes. From my parked car across the street, I watched him walk in, his shoulders slumped, his eyes weary. Guilt was finally cracking his pride. A few minutes later, Anita arrived. Red heels clicking, designer handbag swinging, lips painted the color of blood. She carried herself like a queen, confident, untouchable. I snapped photos, noting the time, the car, the license plate. Evidence. Then I sent a quick message to Major Hossain, target spotted. Operation Truth in motion. He replied instantly. Proceed. By noon, Sohn called me, his voice shaking. Adiz. I think they're setting me up again. Anita gave me another file to sign. She said it's urgent. I swallowed hard. Don't sign it. Pretend you'll review it later. Bring it home. He hesitated. But she's angry. I said bring it home, Sohn. He sighed. Okay. When he arrived that evening, I took the file straight to Kemi, my lawyer friend. She flipped through the pages and gasped. This is a contract authorizing a transfer of funds to a fake consulting firm. Once he signs, he's legally responsible. They're framing him. My heart raced. Then we'll let them finish their plan and catch them in the act. Kemi nodded slowly. We'll need law enforcement, anti-corruption, and military intelligence all watching. I smiled grimly. I already have that covered. 2 days later, the trap was set. Sohn was told to meet Anita and her partners at a private lounge in Victoria Island to finalize his promotion. He didn't know that the entire room would be bugged, cameras hidden, officers waiting nearby. Before he left home, I stopped him at the door. Sohn, I said softly, whatever happens tonight, tell the truth. Don't defend her. Don't hide anything. Just follow my lead. He looked at me with tired eyes. Why are you helping me after everything? I took a deep breath. Because I made vows before God. And because my revenge is not to destroy you, it's to make you see the truth. His eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, he whispered, I'm sorry, Adiz. I nodded but didn't answer. The time for words was over. That night, I sat in an unmarked van outside the lounge, headset on, listening to every word through the covert mic. Anita's voice came sharp and honeyed. Sohn, darling, just sign the papers. Once it's done, you'll be promoted. You'll thank me. Sohn hesitated. I need to read it again. Her tone darkened. Don't waste my time. Sign it, or I'll make sure your name is blacklisted. You'll lose everything. I gritted my teeth as I listened. Then Sohn spoke, his voice trembling but steady. No, I won't sign. I know what you're doing, Anita. There was silence. Then her laugh, cold, mocking. Oh, Sohn, you really think you matter? You're just one of many fools. When they arrest you, I'll already be gone. She reached for her phone, but before she could press a button, the door burst open. Officers flooded the room. Cameras flashed. Anita's face twisted in shock. Ms. Olayemi, Major Hassan's voice boomed. You're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. She turned toward Sohn, screaming, You set me up. But Sohn just stared at her, broken, as they handcuffed her hands. From the van, I closed my eyes, whispering, Justice. Later that night, Son came home in silence. He sat on the couch, burying his face in his hands. Adiz, he whispered, voice cracking. I don't deserve you. I stood before him, arms folded. No, you don't. But you'll live with what you did. You'll face the shame. You'll rebuild, alone if necessary. He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his cheeks. But before I could walk away, my phone buzzed again. A new message. Anita is not the only one. You've just made powerful enemies. Attached was a video of a black SUV following my children's school bus. My blood turned to ice. I whispered to myself, it's not over. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. If you come near my children again, I will rain down fire on every one of you. I screamed the words into the night air, my hands trembling as I gripped my phone, replaying the terrifying video again and again. The black SUV tailed my children's school bus through the narrow streets of Suralere, slow, deliberate, menacing. The message had been short, but deadly. Anita is not the only one. You've made powerful enemies. I sank onto the sofa, my knees weak, my chest tight. For a moment, fear tried to swallow me. But then something snapped. I had been patient, strategic, forgiving. Now, I was done playing nice. They wanted war. They would meet a soldier. By dawn, I was back at the military intelligence office, standing before Major Hassan's desk like a woman possessed. They're targeting my children now. Enough talk. We strike first. He nodded grimly. We anticipated this, Captain. We've traced the SUV to a shell company connected to a known money laundering syndicate. Anita was only one piece of the network. They use corrupt government officials to funnel billions through fake projects. And Son was just their bait, I said bitterly. Yes. They wanted him to sign the final transfer that would trigger an investigation, so they could blame him while the real bosses vanish. I clenched my fists. Sir, I want in. I'll go undercover if I have to. Whatever it takes to expose them. The Major studied me. This is personal now. Adiz. You need to stay sharp. No emotions. I nodded slowly. Understood, sir. But they touched my children. That's no longer just personal. It's unforgivable. That evening, I sat with Son in the living room. The house was quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan. He looked broken, eyes hollow, hands shaking as he held a cup of tea he never drank. Adiz, he whispered. I can't sleep. I keep hearing her voice. Anita. I keep seeing her face when they took her away. I studied him carefully. He was no longer arrogant, no longer proud. Just a man who had finally seen his own weakness. You were blind, Son, I said softly. You let a woman use your ego to destroy your home. But now you'll help me fix it. He nodded slowly. Anything. I'll do anything you say. Good, I said. Because we're going to expose the entire network. You'll act like you're still cooperating with them. We'll feed them bait. And when they take it, we'll have every piece of proof we need. He swallowed hard. What if they find out? I looked him in the eye. Then they'll find out who your wife really is. The next day, we began Operation Rebirth. Major Hassan's team equipped Son's phone with tracking software and bugged his office. Every email, every call, every meeting was monitored. I stayed close, shadowing him from a distance, watching for signs of danger. And it came faster than we expected. That afternoon, Son received a call from a new contact, Mr. Okoro, a supposed consultant, offering to smooth over the fallout from Anita's arrest. He asked to meet privately at a hotel in Ikeja. Son relayed the message to me immediately. This is it, I told the team. They're trying to recruit him again. We'll record everything. Major Hassan nodded. We'll have officers on standby. Hidden surveillance in the room. Captain, you'll monitor from the command van. That night, I sat inside the surveillance van, headphones on, watching the live feed as Sohn walked into the dimly lit hotel room. Mr. Okoro sat at the table, tall, dark-skinned, bald head gleaming under the light, gold wristwatch catching the glow. His voice was smooth, dangerous. "Mr. Adeyemi," he said, gesturing to the chair, "you're a good man caught in a bad situation. We can fix that. Anita may be gone, but we still have friends in high places. Sign this document, and your promotion is guaranteed. In return, you'll keep quiet about the rest." Sohn hesitated. "I don't want any more trouble." Okoro leaned forward. "Trouble finds those who refuse opportunity." There was a long pause. Then Sohn said, steady and clear, "No. I'm done being your puppet." Okoro's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Mr. Adeyemi. We know where your wife works. We know where your children go to school." That was the trigger. Major Hossan gave the order. "Move in." Officers stormed the room. Okoro jumped to his feet, pulling out a hidden flash drive, but they tackled him before he could destroy it. From the van, I watched, fists clenched, as they cuffed him. Justice, bit by bit, was finally unfolding. But just as relief washed over me, another feed came through. One of the agents monitoring the syndicate's office reported, "Captain, we've intercepted chatter. There's a backup plan. They're planning to abduct your children tonight." My blood ran cold. I shot out of the van, heart hammering. "Get them out. Now." Minutes later, I raced through the streets toward the school compound, headlights slicing through the dark. My phone buzzed non-stop, updates from the team. When I arrived, I saw flashing blue lights. 2 men were already in custody, caught near the playground with forged ID cards. I rushed inside, tears streaming down my face as I pulled my children into my arms. "Mummy's here," I whispered, kissing their foreheads. "You're safe now." Zuri looked up at me, confused. "Mummy, why are there policemen?" I smiled weakly. "They're our friends, my love. They came to help." Behind me, Sohn approached slowly, his eyes full of shame and gratitude. "I almost lost everything," he whispered. I looked at him, my heart heavy but resolute. "You still might. But you'll live long enough to make it right." That night, as my children slept under armed protection, I stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Anita was gone. Okoro was in custody. But the network was vast. More names would come. More battles would follow. Still, for the first time, I felt power. Not from rank or revenge, but from knowing I had faced the storm and still stood tall. Tomorrow, we'd reveal everything publicly. And when the world saw the truth, they'd know. You can betray a wife, but never underestimate a warrior. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. They all need to pay, every single one of them. The words erupted from me as I slammed the file on Major Hassan's desk. My voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury. For days, we had gathered the evidence, bank transfers, fake contracts, secret recordings, and now the truth was a storm too powerful to contain. Anita, Okoro, the directors behind them. They thought they could silence me with threats, control Sohn with greed, and terrorize my children into submission. They were wrong. This time, I was coming for them. Major Hossan opened the file, scanning the final report. "Captain Adiz, this is more than enough. We've traced the entire chain. The syndicate runs from the ministry all the way to the boardroom of Zenith Projects Limited. They've siphoned billions over 5 years." My jaw clenched. And they used women like Anita to trap officials like my husband, turning them into scapegoats. He nodded. "But now, with your recordings, we have everything: Anita's confessions, Okoro's negotiations, and Sohn's refusal to sign the last deal." I took a deep breath. Then it's time. Let the world see the truth. The major leaned forward. We'll hold a press conference tomorrow. The military, the Anti-Corruption Commission, and the media will be there. You'll testify as both witness and victim. I hesitated, eyes downcast. Sir, what about Sohn? He sighed. He's not innocent, Captain. He may not have stolen, but he enabled them through negligence. He'll have to face the tribunal. My heart sank. I had fought to save him from prison, but justice required truth. That evening, Sohn sat at the dining table, staring at the floor. The children played quietly in the corner, unaware of the storm above their heads. He looked up as I approached. His eyes were red, his voice low. They said I'll be investigated. Maybe even suspended. I nodded softly. Yes. But it's better than prison. Better than being their scapegoat. He swallowed hard. Adiz. I was blind. I let pride and greed destroy our home. I don't deserve forgiveness. I sat opposite him, clasping my hands. No, Sohn. You don't. But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about healing. For me. For our children. Tears welled in his eyes. Will you ever love me again? I looked at him quietly, the silence heavy between us. Love isn't enough without trust. Right now, I don't know who you are. But maybe, with time, you'll find who you're meant to be. He nodded, head bowed in shame. The next morning, the conference hall in Victoria Island buzzed with reporters. Cameras flashed as I walked in wearing my uniform. Olive green jacket, polished boots, beret tilted just right. The crowd hushed as I took the podium. Good morning, I began, voice steady. My name is Captain Adiz Nwankwo. 4 months, a criminal syndicate has used manipulation, fear, and deceit to steal from this nation. They used my husband, threatened my children, and tried to silence me. But today we expose them. Behind me, a screen lit up with the evidence. Anita's messages ordering Sohn to teach his wife respect, Okoro's recorded threats, and the bank statements linking the stolen funds. Gasps rippled through the audience. Then Major Hossan stepped forward, reading out the list of arrests. Anita Olayemi, Okoro Chibik, 2 senior directors, 1 deputy minister. By the end, the hall was silent. Then applause broke out. Slow at first, then thunderous. For the first time, I allowed myself to breathe. Justice had come. That evening, as the sun dipped over the Lagos skyline, I sat on the balcony with my children. Zuri curled against my arm, humming softly. My son, Tobe, leaned his head on my shoulder. Mummy, Zuri whispered, are the bad people gone? I smiled faintly. Yes, my love. They're gone. And they won't hurt us again. She nodded, satisfied, and drifted to sleep. Sohn joined me quietly, standing by the railing. They've suspended me pending review. But I'll face it. I won't run. I looked at him for a long time. He wasn't the proud, arrogant man I once knew. He was humbled, broken, maybe ready to rebuild. Sohn, I said softly, what matters now is who you become after this. Learn from it. Be a better father. A better man. He nodded slowly. And you? Will you stay? I stared out at the city lights. For now, yes. Our children need stability. But love, Sohn, that takes time. And trust must be earned. He bowed his head. I'll earn it. Even if it takes a lifetime. Later that night, as I tucked the children into bed, I paused by the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same one who once trembled under her husband's voice. She was strong, steady, unshakable. I had walked through betrayal, danger, and humiliation, and come out victorious. I whispered to my reflection. They thought I was just a wife. But I am a warrior. Life lesson. Never let anyone's lies define your worth. Sometimes, the ones meant to protect you will fail, but God will give you the strength to protect yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. It means rising above the ashes and walking into tomorrow with power. They think it's over? No, it's just beginning. That's what I whispered to myself as I stood before the mirror, fastening the last button of my uniform. The scandal had exploded across Lagos. Newspapers screamed headlines like, "Military Captain Exposes Corruption Syndicate in Shocking Press Conference." Wife Unmasks Husband's Mistress. Government shake-up follows. The world now knew my name. The world knew the truth. But behind the applause, danger still lingered. Because when you expose powerful people, they don't disappear quietly. That morning, Major Hossan called me into headquarters. His face was grave. "Captain Adiz, we've made progress. Several arrests have been confirmed. But we've received intel that one of the ringleaders, Minister Ease, escaped the country last night." My jaw tightened. Ease. The one signing off the fake projects. He nodded. Yes. And before leaving, he made a statement. He blames you for the collapse of his career. You and your husband. I took a deep breath. Let him blame me. I'm not the one who stole from the people. The major leaned forward. Be cautious, Captain. His allies still have resources. We're assigning protection until this is fully over. I nodded, though inside I burned. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about justice for every woman silenced by power, every family destroyed by corruption. They came for my home, and I turned my pain into a weapon. Now I would finish what I started. When I returned home, Sohn was waiting at the door, holding an envelope. His eyes were tired, but softer than before. "It's from the commission," he said quietly. "They've cleared me of criminal charges. But I've been demoted. No promotion. No perks." I looked at the letter, then at him. "Then maybe this is God's mercy. You lost your title, but you kept your freedom." He nodded slowly, voice breaking. "I don't deserve mercy. But I'm grateful." I placed the letter on the table and said softly, "You'll rebuild from here. Humility is a better foundation than pride." He smiled faintly, tears glistening. "You've changed, Adiz." I looked him straight in the eyes. "No. I just remembered who I was before I let marriage silence me." Later that day, I sat with Kemi, my lawyer friend, at a small cafe in Victoria Island. She grinned, shaking her head. "You've become a legend. Do you know how many women have been calling my office saying your story gave them courage?" I smiled faintly. "That's what matters most, Kemi. Not revenge. Not applause. Courage." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You turned betrayal into victory. You should be proud." I nodded, but deep down, I felt something unresolved. Justice had been served in the courts, but my heart was still healing. Could I ever truly forgive Sohn? Could I live with a man who let another woman's voice become louder than his wife's? That night, I prayed long and hard. I asked God for clarity, for peace, for strength to do what was right, not what was easy. The next morning, Sohn approached me as I packed the children's school bags. His voice was gentle. "I've enrolled in counseling," he said quietly. "And I've joined a men's fellowship. I want to rebuild my character, not just my job." I looked at him for a long moment. His eyes were sincere. "Good," I said softly. "Because our children need to see a man who admits his wrongs and becomes better." He hesitated. "And you? Do you still see a future for us?" I took a deep breath. "Sohn, love is not a switch you turn on after betrayal. It's a seed that has to grow again. Right now, we're rebuilding the soil." He nodded slowly, understanding. That evening, I visited the military chapel alone. I knelt at the altar, the stained glass light washing over me. I whispered, "God, thank you. You brought me through the fire, and I did not burn. You turned shame into testimony. Help me walk forward in grace." In that silence, I felt peace settle over me. The war outside was ending, and the war inside me was quieting too. I rose, stronger than before. When I returned home, my children ran into my arms, laughing. Zuri whispered, "Mummy, when I grow up, I want to be brave like you." I smiled through tears. "You already are, my love." Son stood in the doorway, watching us. For the first time, I saw humility in his eyes. No pride, no excuses. Just a man learning from his fall. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. Not as we were, but as something new. That night, as I tucked the children in, I looked out the window at the glittering Lagos skyline. I had fought battles in the open and in the shadows. I had faced betrayal and turned it into purpose. And now, the world knew my story, not as a victim, but as a victor. Tomorrow, I would speak at a women's conference. My message would be simple. You are stronger than you think. Don't let love blind you to truth. And never let anyone silence your power. But as I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I opened the message. Minister Ease is back in Nigeria. My heart skipped. Justice might not be finished after all. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What would you do if the man who betrayed you wanted forgiveness? Comment below where you're watching from. If you think coming back will scare me, you don't know who you're dealing with. I shouted those words into the phone, my voice shaking the silence of my living room. The message had come at dawn. Minister Ease has returned. He wants to settle things his own way. For a long moment, I stood frozen, then I straightened my back. This was the man behind Anita, behind Okoro, behind the entire network that tried to destroy my marriage, steal public funds, and threaten my children. He thought coming back to Lagos meant he could intimidate me into silence. But I wasn't the same woman he once tried to break. I was Captain Adiz Nwankwo, soldier, mother, and survivor. And this time, I would write the ending. That morning, I met with Major Hossan and the Anti-Corruption Commission. The air in the briefing room was heavy with tension. Major Hossan spread a file across the table. Minister Ease arrived last night through a private jet. He's already reached out to a few old contacts. He's planning to bribe his way out. He's furious that you exposed his operation. I clenched my fists. Then we'll bring him down publicly. This time, no shadows, no whispers, only truth. The Major nodded. We'll need bait. Something that will draw him out and make him incriminate himself. I took a deep breath. Then let him think I'm vulnerable. I'll meet him. Alone. The room fell silent. Captain, the Major said slowly, that's dangerous. I know, I replied. But this ends today. By evening, my plan was set. A meeting was arranged at a quiet restaurant in Ikoyi, just Ease and me. He thought I was coming to negotiate, to retract my statements and make peace. What he didn't know was that every table around us would be filled with undercover agents, every word recorded, every move watched. As I arrived, the sun was setting over the lagoon, the city glowing gold. I wore a simple dress, not my uniform. No badge. No rank. Just a woman standing tall. Ease was already seated, dark-skinned, tall, in a white kaftan and gold wristwatch, the air of arrogance still clinging to him. He smiled coldly as I sat. Captain Adiz. Or should I call you the soldier wife? You've caused me too much trouble. I met his gaze without blinking. You caused your own downfall. He leaned forward, voice low. You think exposing me will change anything? I built this system. I can buy silence, buy power, buy anything. I tilted my head. Can you buy your soul back? His smile faltered. Then he hissed. You should have taken my offer when you had the chance. I could have given your husband everything. Money, promotion, comfort. But no, you wanted to play hero. Now, I'll make sure you lose it all. I smiled faintly. You already tried. You failed. He frowned. What do you mean? I tapped the table lightly. Because while you were talking, every word was being recorded. Every threat, every confession. His eyes widened. What? Before he could move, agents swarmed the room. Cameras flashed. E shot to his feet, shouting, "You can't do this. I'm a minister." Major Hossan stepped forward, voice steady. "Not anymore. You're under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, and attempted intimidation of a federal officer." Isa's face crumbled. "You set me up." I rose slowly, looking him dead in the eye. "No, Is. You set yourself up when you forgot that power built on lies always collapses." They dragged him away as he cursed and shouted, his voice echoing through the restaurant. I stood still, breathing deeply, the weight of months finally lifting from my chest. Justice. At last. That night, when I got home, Sohn was waiting in the doorway. His eyes were filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. "I heard what happened," he said quietly. "You did it, Adiz. You finished what they started." I nodded. "It's over now." He stepped closer, tears glistening. "You saved me, even when I didn't deserve saving. You fought for truth, not revenge. I'll spend the rest of my life earning that grace." For the first time in months, I saw not the man who betrayed me, but the man who was finally willing to rebuild. "I don't know what the future holds, Sohn," I said softly. "But today I forgive you. Not for your sake, for mine. Because I'm done carrying pain that doesn't belong to me." He broke down in tears, falling to his knees. "Thank you." I helped him up gently. "We'll walk forward one step at a time. But never again will I let silence be mistaken for weakness." Weeks later, the trial made national headlines. Minister Is and his allies were convicted. Anita, now cooperating with investigators, confessed everything. Okoro was sentenced to 10 years. The press called me the soldier wife who fought corruption. But I didn't care about the titles. I cared about peace. About my children growing up knowing their mother stood for truth. One evening, as we sat together, me, Sohn, Zuri, and Tobe, watching the sunset, my daughter looked up and asked, "Mummy, are you a hero?" I smiled gently. "No, my love. I'm just a woman who refused to be afraid." Life lesson. When betrayal breaks you, don't stay broken. Rise. When fear whispers, let courage answer. And when the world underestimates your strength, let your actions speak louder than your pain. You don't need revenge to win. Truth is the greatest victory. Thank you for watching Stories_Tino. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional, powerful stories.
The sterile white room was filled with the frantic beeping of machines, a sound that failed to drown out the strained breaths of Audrey Jensen. With one final heroic push, she brought new life into the world, just as her own was slipping away. Her husband Robert stood by his eyes darting between his dying wife and the phone in his hand, where a single cruel text message glowed. "Is it over yet?" In the hospital waiting room, a woman named Bianca Shaw reapplied her lipstick, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She believed she had won. She was about to inherit a man, a fortune, and a life she'd stolen. But she had no idea that a far more powerful player was watching from the shadows, an old enemy with a debt to pay ready to change the entire game. The fluorescent lights of the delivery suite at St. Benedict's Medical Center hummed a monotonous, indifferent tune. For Audrey Jensen, it was the symphony of her world's end and its beginning. Sweat beaded on her brow, plastering strands of blonde hair to her temples. Every muscle screamed in a chorus of agony, but her focus was singular, her resolve absolute. She was bringing her children, her twins, into the world. Her husband Robert stood near her shoulder, a hand resting limply on hers. He whispered what were supposed to be encouraging words, but they were hollow, distracted. "You're doing great, honey. Almost there." Audrey squeezed his hand, a surge of adrenaline, giving her a moment of lucid clarity. She looked into his eyes, handsome and familiar, and saw a stranger. She saw the flicker of his phone screen, the slight, almost imperceptible guilt that he tried to hide. She'd known for months. The late nights he called board meetings, the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his suits, the cold distance that had wedged itself between them in their bed. She knew about Bianca Shaw. She had stayed not out of weakness, but for the two lives growing inside her. She had a plan, a desperate last resort contingency she prayed she would never need. "Robert," she gasped, her voice raspy. "Look at me." He flinched, startled by her intensity, and finally met her gaze. "Promise me," she panted, the next contraction seizing her. "Promise me you'll protect them, always, no matter what." "Of course, Audrey. Of course I promise," he said quickly, the words a placating balm with no substance. But she wasn't finished. "Promise me on your father's name, Robert. Swear to me they will be your only priority." He hesitated. The mention of his late honorable father was a low blow, a tactic from a time when they still shared a moral compass. I swear it, Audrey." The doctor's voice cut through the haze. "Okay, Audrey, one more big push. I need everything you have left." With a cry that was part pain and part primal roar, she gave her last ounce of strength. The room was suddenly filled with the piercing wail of a newborn, quickly followed by another. "A boy and a girl," the nurse announced, her voice a beacon of joy in the rapidly dimming room. "They're perfect." A weak, beautiful smile touched Audrey's lips as the nurses placed the swaddled bundles on her chest. A son, Noah. A daughter, Olivia. Her gaze drank them in, memorizing every tiny feature. She saw a future for them, a life she would not be a part of. She looked past Robert, her eyes fixed on the sterile white wall, as if she could see through it to a person miles away. A silent plea, a final desperate prayer, left her soul. Then the alarms began to blare. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Voices became urgent, shouting medical terms. "She's hemorrhaging, Code Blue! Get the crash cart in here!" Robert was shoved aside, his face a mask of pale confusion. Audrey's eyes found his one last time. There was no love in them, no anger, only a profound, heartbreaking disappointment. Then her eyes fluttered shut. Down in the polished lobby, Bianca Shaw checked her diamond watch. She'd been waiting for 2 hours. Her phone buzzed. It was Robert. "She's gone. It's done." Bianca didn't gasp. She didn't offer condolences. A slow, venomous smile spread across her perfectly painted lips. She took a compact from her Chanel bag, checked her reflection, and powdered her nose. The obstacle was gone. The game was won. She was now, for all intents and purposes, Mrs. Jensen, the mother of the heirs. She stood up, her stiletto heels clicking with purpose on the marble floor as she headed for the elevator, a predator moving in on her prize. She believed every loose end was tied up. But she and Robert had forgotten about the one man who held the oldest and most sacred of Audrey's promises. A man Robert had wronged so deeply that he had become more than a rival. He was an enemy. And hundreds of miles away, in a penthouse office overlooking the city skyline, Damien Kincaid answered a private call. He listened in silence, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his phone. The world outside his floor-to-ceiling windows blurred. All he could see was a face from his past. Audrey's face smiling at him on a sun-drenched afternoon years ago. "I'll always be here for you, Aud," he had promised her then. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, I'll burn the world down to make it right." The call ended. Damien stood motionless for a long time. Then he buzzed his assistant. "Ms. Finch, cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. And get our head of private investigations on the line. I want 24/7 surveillance on Robert Jensen and a woman named Bianca Shaw. I want to know when they breathe what they eat and every dollar they spend. The Jensen twins have just been born, and their lives are in danger." The war for Audrey's children had begun before her body was even cold. Audrey's funeral was a masterpiece of performative grief. Robert Jensen, dressed in a tailored black suit that cost more than most people's rent, stood at the front of the grand cathedral, dabbing at his dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. He delivered a eulogy that was both moving and utterly fraudulent, speaking of a love that he had betrayed and a future he had willingly sacrificed. Bianca Shaw was not in attendance. It was a calculated move designed to make her seem respectful to avoid ruffling the feathers of Audrey's grieving family, the Pollocks. But her absence was a presence in itself. Everyone who knew the truth of the last year of Audrey's life knew that Bianca was at the Jensen estate, likely choosing which side of the master closet would be hers. Audrey's parents, William and Martha Pollock, watched Robert's performance with undisguised contempt. They were good, solid people from old money, a family whose wealth was built on integrity, not corporate raiding. They had never trusted Robert, seeing the hungry ambition in his eyes from the day Audrey introduced him. Now their worst fears were realized, and their daughter was gone. After the service at the sprawling Jensen manor that Audrey had inherited and lovingly decorated, William Pollock cornered Robert in the library. "This is a disgrace," William said, his voice low and trembling with rage. "You stand there and eulogize her while your whore is waiting in her bed." Robert's mask of grief slipped, revealing a flicker of petulance. "You will not speak about Bianca that way. This is my house now." "This is Audrey's house?" Martha interjected, her face pale, but her eyes burning with a mother's fury. "And those children, her children, are Pollocks. They will not be raised by that woman." "They are Jensen's," Robert snapped, his voice rising. "And they are my children. You will remember your place. You are grandparents. Nothing more." The battle lines were drawn. In the weeks that followed, Bianca moved in officially. Her garish, modern furniture began replacing Audrey's elegant, classic pieces. The warm, inviting home began to feel like a cold, sterile showroom. The twins Noah and Olivia were relegated to the nursery on the second floor, attended to by a rotating staff of nannies. Bianca had no interest in the realities of motherhood. She enjoyed the idea of it, the status it conferred, the way it solidified her claim on the Jensen fortune. She would pose for photos with the babies, carefully curated images for social media that depicted her as the loving, grieving stepmother who had selflessly stepped in. The captions, ghostwritten by a PR assistant, were filled with hashtags like "Brave New Beginning" and "honoring her memory." The nannies saw the truth. They saw how Bianca would enter the nursery, her nose wrinkled at the smell of baby powder and diapers. They saw how she would hold Olivia at arm's length, complaining that she might spit up on her silk blouse. They heard her refer to Noah's crying as irritating noise. One nanny, a kind middle-aged woman named Mrs. Gable, had been with Audrey's family for years and had been hired before her death. She watched with growing horror. She saw Robert, a man completely neutered by Bianca's ambition, become a ghost in his own home. He rarely saw the children. His work became his excuse, but Mrs. Gable knew he was simply avoiding the tiny, accusing faces that looked so much like their mother. Meanwhile, Damien Kincaid was a phantom gathering his forces. His investigative team worked silently, efficiently. They compiled a dossier that grew thicker by the day. It detailed Robert's precarious financial situation. He had leveraged Jensen Industries to the hilt on risky ventures, counting on inheriting Audrey's stable fortune to bail him out. It documented Bianca's sordid history, a string of wealthy married men lawsuits settled out of court, a life built on calculated seduction. Most damningly, they bugged the house. Damien listened to the raw, unfiltered audio feeds from the nursery and the master bedroom, his jaw tightening with every passing day. He heard Bianca cooing at Robert one night, her voice like poison honey. "Darling, the Pollock Trust is just sitting there. We need to access it. Think of the expansion we could do. We could triple everything." "It's for the children, Bianca," Robert had mumbled, a rare flicker of conscience. "It's locked until they're 21. Details, she purred. "Lawyers can find loopholes. Unless, of course, the children aren't in our care. That's what her parents want, isn't it? To take them and the money away from us." Damien heard the neglect in real time. He heard the babies crying for extended periods before a nanny was allowed to attend to them because Bianca was napping or on an important call. He heard Bianca telling her friends over champagne brunch that the twins were an unfortunate but necessary accessory. The final piece of the puzzle for Damien was understanding Audrey's final days. He used his contacts to speak discreetly with one of the nurses who had been in the delivery room. The nurse, hesitant at first, eventually confided what she had witnessed. Her husband? He was barely present, the nurse recalled. He was on his phone so much. And Mrs. Jensen, just before the end, she knew she was dying. She looked him in the eye and made him swear to protect them. The look on her face, it wasn't fear. It was resolve, like she was setting the final piece of a plan in motion. A plan. Damien's mind raced. Audrey had been brilliant, strategic. She had to have known Robert would break his promise. She must have created a failsafe. His investigators soon found it. Audrey had met with her personal lawyer, a man separate from the main Jensen family attorneys, 3 times in the month before she gave birth. The lawyer, an old-school gentleman named Mr. Abernathy, was notoriously discreet. Damien made a call. He didn't threaten or cajole. He spoke of his long-shared history with Audrey, of a friendship that predated Robert Jensen by a decade. He spoke of the promise he had made to her. "I believe Audrey left instructions for a situation exactly like this," Damien said, his voice calm and steely. "I believe she named me. I need to know if I'm right, Mr. Abernathy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "My client's instructions were very specific," the lawyer finally said, his voice heavy with significance. "Certain conditions must be met before the codicil to her will is unsealed. The evidence of parental unfitness must be absolute and irrefutable, and it must be presented in a formal legal setting." Damien understood perfectly. Audrey hadn't just left a note. She had built a weapon, and it required a specific key to unlock it: the courtroom. "Then a formal legal setting is what they'll get," Damien said. His strategy shifted. He wouldn't just watch anymore. He would start pushing the pieces around the board, forcing Robert and Bianca into a trap of Audrey's design. He had his investigators leak an anonymous tip to the Pollock's legal team, a tip about Robert's severe business debts. It was the first move, the one that would prompt the grandparents to file a formal petition for custody, launching the very legal battle Damien needed to make his final move. The shadow in the nursery was about to step into the light. The custody petition from William and Martha Pollock landed like a declaration of war. Robert, spurred on by a furious Bianca, reacted with predictable arrogance. He hired a team of ruthless, high-priced lawyers known for their scorched earth tactics. "How dare they?" Bianca shrieked, pacing the marble living room, a room that still felt like Audrey's, despite her best efforts. "They're trying to steal our children. Our money." The slip was telling. "They have no grounds," Robert said, trying to sound confident. "I'm their father. The court will never take a father's children away." "Don't be a fool, Robert," she snapped. "Your position is only as strong as your image, and right now our image needs polishing." Thus began the grand charade. Bianca Shaw, the woman who considered the twins a nuisance, transformed herself into a paragon of maternal virtue. A high-end photographer was hired to capture tender moments. Bianca reading to a bewildered Noah, Bianca gently rocking a sleeping Olivia Robert, and Bianca posing as a perfect family unit in the manicured gardens. The photos were strategically released to sympathetic media outlets and flooded their social media. The narrative they spun was tragic and compelling. A grieving father finds new love with a woman who adores his motherless children, only to be persecuted by bitter, controlling in-laws who can't accept his happiness. Behind the scenes, the gilded cage was rotting. Mrs. Gable, the nanny, became a silent witness to the farce. She saw Bianca hand a crying baby off to her the second the photographer's camera was down. She saw the strained, artificial smiles collapse into scowls of irritation the moment they were back inside. One afternoon, Mrs. Gable found Olivia with a high fever. The baby was listless, her breathing shallow. She rushed to find Bianca, who was hosting a poolside luncheon for her socialite friends. "Mrs. Jensen," Mrs. Gable said urgently, keeping her voice low. "Olivia is very ill. I think we need to call the doctor immediately." Bianca, holding a glass of champagne, waved a dismissive hand. "It's just a sniffle. Give her some infant Tylenol. I'm in the middle of something." "Ma'am, her fever is 103. She's struggling to breathe." "This isn't a sniffle," Mrs. Gable insisted, her professionalism battling her rising panic. Bianca's eyes narrowed into icy slits. "Are you questioning my judgment regarding my own daughter? Do as I say, and do not interrupt me again." Shaking with rage, Mrs. Gable returned to the nursery. She ignored Bianca's order and called the pediatrician directly, who instructed her to take the child to the emergency room immediately. Olivia had a severe respiratory infection and required oxygen. She was admitted to the hospital for 2 days. Bianca and Robert showed up for a perfunctory 20-minute visit, just long enough for a well-timed photo op of them looking concerned at their daughter's bedside. The incident was logged in meticulous detail in the files of Damien Kincaid's investigators. They had copies of the hospital admission records, a sworn statement from Mrs. Gable, and even a recording of Bianca's dismissive conversation captured by a device hidden in a teddy bear on the nursery shelf, a gift from a mysterious benefactor a few weeks prior. Damien's team was also busy on the financial front. Following his anonymous tip, the Pollocks lawyers had begun digging into Robert's finances. But Damien's people were deeper faster. They discovered the smoking gun Robert had used a significant portion of Audrey's liquid assets, which were meant to be held in trust for the estate as collateral for a high-risk commodities deal, a deal that was now on the verge of collapsing. He was not just a negligent father, he was actively embezzling from his own children's inheritance. The pressure began to mount on Robert. Creditors were calling. The custody battle was draining his resources. He became more irritable, more desperate. The arguments between him and Bianca grew louder, more venomous. "This is your fault," he yelled at her one night, the sound echoing through the cavernous house. "You and your endless spending, the redecorating, the parties, the cars." "My fault," she screamed back. "I'm the one holding this family together. I'm the one creating the image that's going to win us that custody case. You're the one who made stupid investments. Don't you dare blame me for your incompetence." Damien listened to the recording of the fight in his silent, darkened office. He felt no satisfaction, only a cold, grim determination. This was the rot he had expected. This was the evidence of unfitness Mr. Abernathy required. He made another move. Kincaid consolidated his global empire, discreetly bought up the debt on Robert's failing commodities deal. Overnight, Damien Kincaid became Robert Jensen's primary and most unforgiving creditor. He now had the power to bankrupt him with a single phone call. The preliminary custody hearing was scheduled. The Pollocks, armed with the initial financial information, felt they had a strong case based on Robert's instability and Bianca's questionable character. They were prepared for a fight, but they had no idea they were merely the opening act in a much larger, more complex drama. On the morning of the hearing, Robert and Bianca presented a united front. She wore a modest navy blue dress, her hair in a simple chignon. He looked every bit the responsible, grieving widower. They walked into the courthouse confident that their team of legal sharks and their carefully crafted public image would prevail. They didn't see the sleek black car parked across the street. Inside, Damien Kincaid sat in the passenger seat, his face unreadable. Beside him, his lead attorney, a formidable woman named Evelyn Finch, reviewed a thick, leather-bound portfolio. "All the pieces are in place," she said, her voice crisp. "The medical negligence report on Olivia Jensen, the sworn affidavit from the nanny, the complete financial audit showing embezzlement, and of course the lien on Jensen Industries. He's cornered." Damien stared at the courthouse doors. Audrey didn't want him cornered, he said, his voice low. She wanted him exposed. She wanted the truth to be an avalanche that buried him. Let the Pollocks have their say first. Let Robert and Bianca get comfortable. Let them lie under oath. We go in when their arrogance is at its absolute peak. He was not just a businessman executing a takeover. He was a protector fulfilling a sacred vow. And court was now in session. The atmosphere inside Family Courtroom 3B was thick with tension. It was a small, wood-paneled room that felt suffocatingly intimate for the magnitude of the drama unfolding. William and Martha Pollock sat at one table with their lawyer, their faces etched with a mixture of grief and steely resolve. At the opposing table, Robert Jensen and Bianca Shaw sat straight-backed, projecting an aura of wronged innocence. Their lead attorney, a slick, silver-haired man named Mitchell Crane, exuded an oily confidence. The hearing began presided over by Judge Marianne Wallace, a woman with a reputation for being sharp, no-nonsense, and having little patience for theatrics. The Pollocks' lawyer, a methodical man named Mr. Davies, laid out his case first. He spoke of his client's deep love for their grandchildren and their concern for the children's welfare. He presented evidence of Robert's financial recklessness, showing bank statements and loan agreements that painted a picture of a man spiraling into debt. "Your Honor," Davies argued, Mr. Jensen's financial instability creates an unstable environment for these two infants. He is liquidating assets that should be preserved for their future to fund a lavish lifestyle and cover speculative business losses. Mitchell Crane countered smoothly. "Your Honor, my client is a savvy businessman navigating a difficult market. The Pollocks are simply trying to use a temporary financial downturn to seize control of their late daughter's estate. This is not about the children's welfare. It's about money." Judge Wallace listened impassively, her fingers steepled. The focus then shifted to Bianca. Mr. Davies called Mrs. Gable to the stand. The nanny was nervous but resolute. She recounted in a clear and steady voice the incident with Olivia's illness. She told the court how Bianca had dismissed her concerns, how she had to go against her employer's direct orders to get the child life-saving medical care. She referred to the children as accessories, Mrs. Gable stated, her voice trembling slightly. She said their crying was an irritating noise. Crane's cross-examination was brutal. He painted Mrs. Gable as a disgruntled employee, loyal to her former employers, the Pollocks. He twisted her words, suggesting she had overreacted, that she was trying to manufacture a crisis. "So you and Nanny decided you knew better than the child's own mother," Crane sneered. "I knew that a 103-degree fever in a 2-month-old infant was a medical emergency," Mrs. Gable said firmly. "A mother should have known that, too." Despite her powerful testimony, Crane managed to sow seeds of doubt. It was her word against Bianca's. Then Bianca took the stand. She was the picture of grace and sorrow. She shed tears as she spoke of her instantaneous love for Noah and Olivia. She described her bond with them, her voice cracking with emotion. When Crane asked her about Olivia's illness, her performance was flawless. "I was terrified," she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "But I trusted Mrs. Gable, who I believed was a professional. When she said she was taking Olivia to the doctor, I was in the middle of a business luncheon securing a future for my family. I told her to do whatever was necessary. The accusation that I was dismissive is cruel and baseless, a lie concocted by people who have resented me from day one." She looked at the Pollocks with wounded eyes. Robert watched her, a look of genuine admiration on his face. He was completely captivated by her deception. Judge Wallace seemed to be leaning in their favor. The Pollocks' case was emotional, but lacked the irrefutable proof needed to strip a biological father of his parental rights. Mr. Davies looked defeated. Martha Pollock was quietly weeping. It was in that moment of Bianca's apparent triumph, as she sat on the stand, radiating smug victimhood, that the courtroom doors opened. 2 people entered. The first was a woman with an air of immense competence and a sharp, intelligent face, Evelyn Finch. The man who followed her sucked the air out of the room. He was tall, impeccably dressed, in a dark gray suit with an aura of raw power that was palpable. His face was hard, his eyes cold as a winter storm. Robert Jensen's jaw dropped. His face went white with shock and a primal fear. "Damien Kincaid." He whispered the name, a curse on his lips. Mitchell Crane shot to his feet. "Your Honor, who are these people? This is a closed hearing." Evelyn Finch stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Evelyn Finch, Your Honor, I am counsel for Mr. Damien Kincaid. We are here to present evidence material to this case as a concerned party with a vested interest in the well-being of the Jensen twins." "A vested interest?" Judge Wallace asked, her eyebrows raised. "Mr. Kincaid, you are Robert Jensen's primary business rival, are you not?" "I am many things, Your Honor." Damien said, his voice a low, resonant baritone that commanded attention. "A business rival to Mr. Jensen is one of them. A friend to the late Audrey Pollock Jensen is another, and far more important one." He handed a file to the bailiff, who passed it up to the judge. "Before we proceed, Your Honor, I believe you will find this relevant. It is a notice of foreclosure on all assets of Jensen Industries, effective as of this morning. Mr. Jensen no longer has a company. He is for all legal purposes bankrupt." Robert looked like he had been physically struck. You can't," he stammered. "I can, and I have," Damien said, his cold eyes locking onto Robert's. "You defaulted on covenants tied to the debt I acquired, the debt you secured by illegally leveraging your children's trust." The room descended into chaos. Crane was shouting objections. Robert was sputtering denials. Bianca stared at Damien, her mask of perfection finally cracking, revealing the furious, terrified shrew beneath. Judge Wallace banged her gavel. "Silence order in my court." When the room quieted, she looked at the file, then at Damien. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Kincaid." "Audrey Jensen's life was highly irregular, Your Honor," Finch stated calmly. "As are the circumstances of her children's lives. We have more evidence. Evidence that will leave no doubt as to the character of the people seeking custody of these children." Finch placed a small digital recorder on her desk. "We have audio recordings, Your Honor. Recordings from inside the Jensen home. Recordings of Ms. Shaw referring to the twins as accessories. Recordings of her and Mr. Jensen arguing over their intent to find loopholes to drain the children's trust fund. Recordings of the very conversation on the day Olivia Jensen was hospitalized, where Ms. Shaw called the baby's illness an irritating noise and refused to call a doctor." Bianca shot to her feet. "Lies. Those are fake. They're inadmissible." "Are they Ms. Shaw?" Finch asked, her voice dangerously soft. "Would you like me to play the recording of you telling your friend last Tuesday that you wished the nannies could just raise them somewhere else until they were old enough not to be so disgusting? We have forensic audio experts ready to testify to the authenticity of every single recording." Bianca crumpled back into her chair, her face a ghastly shade of white. The trap had been sprung. The lies had unraveled. Robert stared at the floor, a broken man realizing he had lost everything: his company, his reputation, and now, his children. The Pollocks looked on, stunned, as this unexpected, formidable ally systematically dismantled the people who had destroyed their daughter's life. But even they had no idea of the final stunning revelation Damien Kincaid was about to deliver. The courtroom was a tomb. The air, once crackling with legal sparring, was now heavy with the silence of utter devastation. Bianca Shaw was no longer a grieving Madonna, but a cornered animal, her eyes darting around as if seeking an escape route that didn't exist. Robert Jensen was a hollowed-out shell the strings of his puppet existence finally cut. Judge Wallace, her face a grim mask, looked down from her bench at the wreckage of their lives. "Ms. Finch, play the recording from the day the child was taken to the hospital." Evelyn Finch pressed a button. Bianca's voice, clear and sharp, filled the room. "It's just a sniffle. Give her some infant Tylenol. I'm in the middle of something. Are you questioning my judgment regarding my own daughter? Do as I say, and do not interrupt me again." A collective gasp went through the small audience. Martha Pollock covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. The cold, dismissive cruelty in Bianca's tone was undeniable. It was the voice of a woman not just unfit for motherhood, but fundamentally devoid of human empathy. "I believe that is conclusive, Your Honor," Finch said, switching off the device. Judge Wallace's gaze fell upon Robert. "Mr. Jensen, do you have anything to say to this? You stood by and allowed this woman to endanger your child. You swore an oath to your dying wife." Robert could only shake his head, mute with shame and terror. He had made a deal with the devil, and the bill had finally come due. Custody of the minor children. Noah and Olivia Jensen is hereby and immediately revoked from their father, Robert Jensen, on the grounds of gross negligence, endangerment, and financial misconduct. Judge Wallace declared, her voice ringing with finality. Interim custody is granted to their maternal grandparents, William and Martha Pollock. A wave of relief washed over the Pollocks. They had won. Their grandchildren were safe. William reached over and squeezed his wife's hand, tears of vindication in his eyes. But Damien Kincaid wasn't finished. He took a step forward. "Your Honor, if I may." All eyes turned to him. What more could there be? The Pollocks are good, loving people. Damien said, his voice softer now, tinged with a deep, resonant sorrow. And they will provide a safe home for the children. But Audrey had one final provision, a fail-safe should a day like this ever come to pass. She was a brilliant woman. She knew the man she married. She knew his weaknesses, and she knew the predators he would attract. He looked at Robert. She knew you would break your promise. From his breast pocket, Damien produced a long, sealed envelope. The wax seal bore the insignia of Audrey's private law firm. Mr. Abernathy, Audrey's personal counsel, is waiting outside this courtroom. He is prepared to verify the authenticity of this document. It is a legally binding codicil to Audrey Jensen's last will and testament to be unsealed and executed only under a specific set of circumstances. Evelyn Finch stepped forward again. The circumstances were as follows, Your Honor. In the event that my husband, Robert Jensen, is deemed legally unfit as a parent and a formal court order revokes his custody of my children. Those conditions were met approximately 2 minutes ago. Damien handed the envelope to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. Judge Wallace broke the seal and unfolded the document. As she read, her expression shifted from stern authority to profound surprise. She read it once, then again, as if unable to believe the words on the page. She looked up, her eyes settling on Damien Kincaid. This document, this names you Mr. Kincaid. It names you as the sole legal guardian of Noah and Olivia Jensen. The Pollocks stared, confused and hurt. What? That can't be right, William stammered. We're their grandparents. Please allow me to explain, Damien said, turning to them. His voice was gentle, full of a respect and sadness that disarmed their budding anger. Audrey loved you more than anything, but she knew this fight would nearly destroy you. She knew the mud Robert and Bianca would sling, the fortune it would cost you, the emotional toll it would take. She didn't want your golden years to be spent in endless court battles, fending off a man like Robert, who would never stop trying to get his hands on the children's money. He continued his gaze, sweeping the room, but his words aimed squarely at the memory of the woman he was honoring. She wanted more for them than just safety. She wanted them to have a protector with the resources and the ruthlessness to shield them from all threats. Someone who could not be bought, intimidated, or outmaneuvered. Someone who understood the world Robert lived in and could defeat him at his own game. He paused, and the depth of his connection to Audrey became clear. We spoke the week before she died. She told me she was afraid. She made me promise that if the worst happened, I wouldn't let her children be used as pawns. She told me about this document. She made me promise to enforce it. He looked at Judge Wallace. The codicil establishes the Audrey Pollock Jensen Legacy Trust, superseding all previous trusts. It places the entirety of her fortune, her estate, and most importantly her children, under my exclusive legal guardianship. The Pollocks are named as beloved grandparents with unlimited visitation rights and a designated role in the children's upbringing. But the ultimate responsibility, the legal and financial shield, that she entrusted to me. The full scope of Audrey's plan was finally laid bare. It was a masterpiece of foresight and protective love. She hadn't just relied on others. She had placed her children in the hands of the one person in the world with the power and the personal motivation to guarantee their safety. The man her husband saw as an enemy, she had always seen as her truest friend. Bianca Shaw, realizing that not a single dollar would ever pass through her hands, let out a choked, hysterical laugh of disbelief. It was the sound of utter defeat. Damien Kincaid finally looked at her and at the broken man beside her. There was no triumph in his eyes, only a chilling finality. He turned back to the judge. Robert Jensen and Bianca Shaw sought to claim Audrey's legacy for themselves. He stated, his voice like iron. But they are not entitled to it. Her legacy is not the house, or the money, or the name. It is her son and her daughter. He took a deep breath, and with 3 definitive words sealed their fate and a promise made long ago. They're mine. The fallout from the courtroom declaration was swift and brutal. The gavel had barely sounded before the lives Robert and Bianca had built began to disintegrate into dust. Damien Kincaid's declaration. "They're mine" was not a boast. It was the execution of a well-laid plan. Security personnel hired by Kincaid were waiting outside the courtroom. They served a stunned Robert and Bianca with eviction notices. They were to vacate Audrey's house, now the property of the Kincaid-managed trust, within 24 hours. They were permitted to take only their personal belongings under supervision to ensure no asset of the estate was removed. The spectacle was humiliating. Bianca, who had swept into the mansion like a conquering queen, was forced to pack her designer clothes and gaudy furniture into a moving van under the watchful eyes of stone-faced security guards. The staff, including a vindicated Mrs. Gable, watched in silence as the usurper was dethroned. Bianca's final act was to scream obscenities at the house itself, a furious, impotent howl at the life that had been snatched from her grasp. Robert, meanwhile, was facing a different kind of ruin. The bankruptcy of Jensen Industries was immediate. The company he had spent his life building on a foundation of his father's hard work, and Audrey's money was dismantled piece by piece by Kincaid's efficient team of liquidators. His business reputation was annihilated. News of the custody hearing, the embezzlement, and the foreclosure spread like wildfire through the financial world. He was a pariah. No bank would lend him $1. No partner would shake his hand. But Damien's justice was not merely financial. Evelyn Finch filed a formal criminal complaint against Robert for embezzlement of a minor's trust fund, and against both Robert and Bianca for criminal child neglect. With the audio recordings and Mrs. Gable's testimony, the case was airtight. They were arrested 2 days after being thrown out of the house. The booking photos, Bianca's face streaked with tear-smeared makeup, Robert's gaunt and empty-eyed, were a pathetic postscript to their story of greed. While their world burned, a new one was being carefully constructed for Noah and Olivia. Damien met with William and Martha Pollock at their elegant, comfortable home. There was an initial awkwardness, a need to reconcile the image of the ruthless corporate raider with the man their daughter had entrusted with her children. Damien was not what they expected. He was quiet, respectful, and spoke of Audrey with a reverence that brought tears to Martha's eyes. "I have no intention of replacing you," he told them, his voice sincere. "You are their grandparents. You are their connection to their mother's heart. My role is to be their shield. I will manage the trust, ensure their every need is met, and use my resources to give them a world of opportunity. But I need you to give them a family's love, a home." They forged an alliance born of their shared love for Audrey. It was decided that the children would live with the Pollocks. The Jensen mansion was to be sold. Its memories were too tainted. A portion of the proceeds from the trust would be used to add a state-of-the-art nursery wing to the Pollock home. Mrs. Gable was hired back now, answering to Martha her salary paid by the trust Damien administered. Damien himself was a constant, if discreet, presence. He didn't try to play the role of a father. He was something else, a guardian, a protector. He visited every week not with fanfare, but with a quiet intensity. At first, he would simply stand by their cribs, watching them sleep, a complex mix of sorrow and determination on his face. He was fulfilling his promise, and the weight of it was immense. As they grew from infants into toddlers, He became Uncle Damien. He was the one who set up their impenetrable college funds. He was the one whose security team ensured they were always safe. He was the one who, on the anniversary of Audrey's death, would take the Pollocks and the children to a quiet, private garden he had built in her memory, a place of peace, away from the world's harsh glare. The world of Robert and Bianca became a distant, cautionary tale. Their trial was swift. Robert, facing overwhelming evidence, took a plea deal, receiving a sentence of 5 to 7 years for his financial crimes. Bianca, refusing to accept any responsibility, went to trial and was convicted on all charges of neglect and endangerment. Her histrionics in court did nothing to sway the jury. She received a 3-year sentence. Their names faded from the society pages, becoming footnotes in a story of greed and hubris. Damien never spoke of them. His focus was always on the future, on the 2 lives he had sworn to protect. He found a purpose beyond the boardroom and the balance sheets. In the laughter of Olivia and the curious gaze of Noah, he found a connection to the friend he had lost, a way to keep her spirit alive. He had torn down Robert Jensen's false empire of lies and debt, and from the ashes he was helping the Pollocks nurture something real and lasting, Audrey's true legacy. 5 years passed. The world turned, seasons changed, and in the warm, loving embrace of the Pollock household, 2 children blossomed. Noah was a thoughtful, quiet boy, with his mother's kind eyes and a startlingly brilliant mind for puzzles and patterns. Olivia was a whirlwind of joyful energy, her laughter echoing through the halls, her artistic streak evident in the vibrant, chaotic paintings she created. They knew their mother Audrey through the stories their grandparents told, through the countless photographs Martha had placed around the house, and through the gentle, loving atmosphere she had inspired. They knew Robert Jensen only as a name, a biological fact they were too young to comprehend. Bianca Shaw didn't exist in their world at all. Their family was their doting grandparents and the formidable yet gentle figure of Uncle Damien. Damien Kincaid had changed too. The hard edges that defined him in the corporate world softened whenever he was with the children. He was still a titan of industry, a name that commanded respect and fear, but he now scheduled his global business around preschool graduations and t-ball games. He taught Noah how to play chess patiently, explaining the strategy behind each move. He sat for hours while Olivia painted his portrait, never once complaining about the streaks of purple paint she inevitably got on his $1,000 suit. One sunny afternoon, Damien was in the garden with the Pollocks, watching the twins chase butterflies across the lawn. Noah, in a moment of quiet contemplation, came over and sat beside him on the bench. "Uncle Damien," he asked, his small face serious. "Grandma says you were my mommy's best friend." Damien's breath caught in his throat. He looked at the boy, a perfect fusion of the woman he had cherished and the man he despised, and saw only her. "Yes, Noah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was. She was the best friend a person could ever have." "Did you promise her you would watch us?" "I did," Damien replied, placing a hand on the boy's small shoulder. "It was the most important promise I've ever made." Olivia, abandoning her butterfly chase, ran over and clambered into Damien's lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "We love you, Uncle Damien," she said with the simple, absolute conviction of a child. In that moment, holding Audrey's children, Damien understood the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't in the skyscrapers that bore his name, or the stock portfolios that swelled with every passing hour. It was here in the unconditional love of 2 children he had saved from a terrible fate. It was in the peaceful faces of the Pollocks, who could enjoy their grandchildren without fear. It was in the quiet certainty that he had honored his friend in the most profound way possible. Far away in separate, lonely worlds, Robert and Bianca were living out the consequences of their choices. Robert was released from prison early for good behavior, a broken and impoverished man barred from ever contacting his children. He lived in anonymity, a ghost haunted by the life he had thrown away. Bianca served her full sentence and emerged bitter and forgotten. Her beauty faded, her name a punchline in old gossip columns. They were irrelevant. Damien had not only saved the children, he had erased the shadows that threatened to darken their lives. He had given them a future their mother had dreamed of, one of safety, opportunity, and most importantly, boundless love. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Damien Kincaid watched Noah and Olivia run back to their grandmother's open arms. He had once been defined by his enmity with Robert Jensen, but now his life was defined by his love for Audrey's children. He hadn't just claimed them in a courtroom, he had claimed them in his heart. The richest enemy had become their fiercest protector, and in doing so had found his own redemption. The promise was kept. The legacy was secure. That brings us to the end of this incredible story of love, betrayal, and ultimate justice. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of the darkest greed, a promise made from the heart can be the most powerful force on earth. Audrey Jensen's foresight and her unwavering faith in a true friend ensured that her legacy wouldn't be defined by her tragic death, but by the beautiful lives of the children she fought so hard to bring into the world. From the depths of despair and the smirk of a triumphant mistress, justice was delivered by the last person anyone expected. What did you think of Damien's final move in the courtroom? Was it the perfect twist? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of a promise kept against all odds moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves a story of ultimate vindication. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next real-life drama. Thank you for listening.